I got offered to join, I forget, like Sigma Theta Thou. I don't know. I'm terrible with that kind of terminology, but they got offered to join this honor society and questioning whether it'd be like a resume booster, right? I do know all those things cost money. Like, okay, congratulations, you got accepted into this, but here, pay me $50 so you can be part of our association. I'm not poo-pooing it. I just want to be upfront and honest with how I feel about that, because it's going to cost you money and resources to be a part of it. So if you're going to accept that kind of honor society and you're going to pay to be a part of that membership, just use it. Don't just think you're going to join it and not actually volunteer or commit or do any kind of committee work with them or unit projects or whatever you do within those societies. Because it's kind of like the same thing, like you're just essentially adding it on your resume, but you didn't actually do any community work with it. You didn't actually give back to society. You didn't actually gain any leadership skills from it. So it's just really not that valuable unless you actually plan on using it. I'm Jenny Fennell, CRNA and founder of CRNA School Prep Academy. I have always had a passion for helping those who aspire to become a CRNA. A couple of years ago, I started mentoring a handful of prospective students. Fast forward to today, and I have a successful mentoring program that has impacted hundreds of aspiring and now current nurse anesthesia students. What I enjoy the most in my business is connecting with you, the future CRNA. I love learning and growing with you. The road to CRNA is full of unique challenges, and no two journeys are the same. But every journey has a learning opportunity. I'm here to share what I have learned over the years from not just my students, but CRNA community leaders, program faculty, and from my time as a practicing CRNA. This will be your one-stop shop to get the mentoring you need to not only guide you into this career path, but support you all the way through to graduation day. So if you're a nursing student who's exploring the possibility, an ICU nurse actively pursuing CRNA, or a current nurse anesthesia student, you're in the right place. Tune in for inspiration and actionable takeaways that will help you from start to finish. Let's get started. Well, hello, welcome back to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, and I'm excited to have you back today, and I appreciate you, so thank you so very much. Today we're going to talk about leadership roles and applying to CRNA school, what kind of leadership roles work for CRNA school. I hear a lot of people question whether they have good enough leadership skills or whether they have the right leadership experience, what are the type of things they should be doing to get that experience. So I'd love to share just some insights into what it looks like to apply to CRNA school with leadership experience and some of the different ways you can go about getting that. So first and foremost, I want to kind of debunk a myth that I hear often, or I hear students come to me that they're concerned that they don't have good enough volunteer experience, for example, because that is one way to gain leadership experience is by having volunteer experience. They think they need to have a mission trip or be doing something big with the Red Cross or just having something medical related. They feel like they need that to be competitive, and it's just simply not true. Volunteer work in general, as long as you're passionate about it, as long as you're actively involved in doing whatever this volunteer work is, it's great experience for leadership roles for CRNA school. It does not have to be mission trips. It doesn't have to be medical related. I ran into a student at NTI in Houston just a couple months ago now, since this podcast is airing. But she was concerned because she had volunteer experience, but it was kind of what she said was non-traditional, and she didn't have, medical volunteer experience. And her experience was that she actually is a gardener, a very avid gardener, and she actually donates that food to the local food bank. I think that's amazing. I told her to be really proud of that. And because, she's doing two things. She's doing a hobby that she enjoys. That's a kind of a stress relief for her. So that's like a hobby. Again, something that brings her joy and happiness is gardening. She's taking that strength and that skill and she's giving back to the community by donating food. I think that's an amazing thing to do as a volunteer activity. She's donating her time to grow a garden and grow food for people who can't afford food. Again, it could be something really simple like that, but clearly if you're asked about that if she's asked about her, community work as far as donating food to a food shelter, she would speak very passionately about that because she's an avid gardener and she's using a skill set that she's very passionate and good at. So I think that would speak very highly of her and come across really well to an interview panel. What I want to caution you in is to not pick something just because you think it's what they want to see. You should pick something that you would actually enjoy doing. So if when you're asked about it, you can glow, right? So you can just smile from ear to ear and talk about it in a way that shows that, wow, they were really picked this activity because it speaks to their soul and what they want to contribute to society. So again, your volunteer work does not have to be medical related. It can really be anything that you're passionate about that you would feel really enthusiastic to talk about if you were asked. But yeah, of course, the Red Cross is good. Of course, mission trips are also equally as good if you're passionate about that type of thing, if you want to do that type of thing. So other suggestions are things like volunteering at a library or an elementary school. Those are all, again, acceptable ways to get your volunteer experience that will add into your leadership roles within your community, right? Other ways are things like a nursing student association, an honor society. One thing I want to caution you though, because I've had a lot of students reach out to me saying, I got offered to join, I forget, like Sigma Theta Thou. I don't know. I'm terrible with that kind of terminology, but they got offered to join this honor society and question whether it'd be like a resume booster, right? I do know all those things cost money. Like, okay, congratulations, you got accepted into this, but here, pay me $50 so you can be part of our association. I'm not poo-pooing it. I just want to be upfront and honest with how I feel about that, because it's going to cost you money and resources to be a part of it. So if you're going to accept that kind of honor society and you're going to pay to be a part of that membership, just use it. Don't just think you're going to join it and not actually volunteer or commit or do any kind of committee work with them or unit projects or whatever you do within those societies, because it's kind of like the same thing. Like you're just essentially adding on your resume, but you didn't actually do any community work with it. You didn't actually give back to society. You didn't actually gain any leadership skills from it. So it's just really not that valuable unless you actually plan on using it. I'll give you an example. Something I did recently was, our son just started kindergarten. So I'm like, I'm going to be that mom I always dreamed about. I'm going to join PTO. I'm going to go to the school activities. I'm just going to be involved. And, as a child growing up, both my parents worked 50, 60 hours a week, and I love them. I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But I remember always feeling envious of the students who had their parents at school on occasion, for like field trips and things like that. So again, I was like, I'm going to be a PTO mom, right? Well, here I am running a business, working as a CRNA. I have 3 little kids. And let's just say I didn't do a thing. I didn't even read half the PTO emails that came to me. I never went to a single meeting. I just didn't have the time. That I didn't make it a priority to actually do the PTO mom thing, even though I desired to do it. And so that being said, like if I had to put that on my resume and they said, hey, Jenny, I see you're on the PTO committee at your child's school. Tell me about that. I'd be like, crickets, because I didn't do a single thing. So that's what I mean as far as if you're going to join something, it really only will beef up your resume if you can speak to it as far as what your involvement was like being on that committee. So again, Nursing Student Association, a great way, but make sure you're involved and you're doing things to get involved in that committee or in that association so that way you can speak to it. And just, when you're doing your resume, there's so many times, like when I was reviewing someone's resume, that I would see something, I wouldn't quite understand what it was all about. And then when I'd ask the candidate about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I wish I would have gathered more from your resume. So I personally think if you gave like a short little brief sentence as far as why you won the Daisy Award, you don't have to go into a big long paragraph. I mean, why did you get these awards? What did you do in this? What enrichment did you get from this committee, right? List the specific committee that you were on, not just the unit leadership committee. Well, I took charge of this unit project in the leadership committee. That's more detail. That's a little more like, oh, okay, they actually did something on this committee versus just join it. And, like I think my PTO experience, I didn't do anything, even though I was technically on the list, So yeah, just make sure when you're joining associations that you're actually doing something. It doesn't have to be tons of time. It doesn't have to be anything massive. It just has to be something. So do what feels good and manageable for you as far as a time commitment. Be realistic with your time. Clearly that I'm not realistic with my time. So I'm preaching to the choir here, but just pick an activity that you feel like you can maintain, which is why I love the gardening example, because that's something that like she loves to do. So she's passionate about showing up in her garden and doing it. And yet she still found a way to give back by using a skill and a hobby that she enjoys. Where me, spending my evening or my afternoon going to something in the PTO or early morning going to PTO when I'm trying to drop off my kids to school, then I have to go home and check emails and start running the business and it just felt like, I'm going to feel even more rushed to get this done. And, so I picked an activity that wasn't necessarily in line with giving back to myself, right? It wasn't fulfilling my cup, where the gardening's filling her cup and she's giving back. So that's why I really liked that example, because I felt like that was a great way to like take care of yourself and give back at the same time. So be realistic. If you pick an activity that's really kind of, again, going to be harder for you to actually contribute to, then I would suggest kind of trying to look elsewhere for leadership roles and experience with volunteer and committee work. Another great option are things like church youth groups or camps, giving back in that way. Again, if that's something that you've been involved in for a very long time, that is a great avenue to take to get more involved in the community. Again, this is about community. Getting involved in the community and giving back is developing leadership skills, because you're essentially giving, some of your skill set to the community at large. So that's really, again, a form of leadership by doing that. The AACN. I don't know why more people don't actually have this on their resume. They usually have their CCRN, but not as many that I find or can have come across actually have any kind of committee work or volunteer work through the AACN. And if you go to their website, there are tons of options to volunteer and to do different things through the AACN. And if you're a part of the AACN with your CCRN or other CSC or other certifications, what better way to promote that and support that kind of the education that you receive through them? So I think it's a great option for people to get involved in the AACN. Conferences. And, don't get me wrong, you don't need to go to like a million conferences a year. You don't even have to go to more than one conference a year. But I do think whether you're picking an AACN conference, whether you're picking a conference like CRNA School Prep Academy, whether you're picking diversity, whether you're picking state PAC association conference, or even like annual congress through the AANA, try to aim for like one conference a year. I think that's a really realistic goal. You don't have to, again, hit 2 or 3 conferences in a year, because I get it. It's expensive to go to conferences, and it's also time consuming if you have to actually travel to go. But I really think getting involved in conferences not only is a great way to display your involvement in the community, aka leadership, it's a great way to network and connect with people. So I really think you should be aiming to, if you have several years before CRNA school's application comes around, I think you should be seeking out at least one conference a year at minimum to go to, probably maximum 2. I think 2 a year is plenty. I don't think you need to go overboard with 3. But I think for sure 1 a year would be very enriching for you. And again, it would allow you to connect and network, which, by the way, CSPA's conference is August 6th and 7th. I hope to see you there. I will, of course, link to that below so you can learn more. We're going to have lots of schools there. We're going to have current students there to network. And I don't know, if you haven't been through a hop-in event, it's very different than Zoom. They actually have a whole network area, which again is its own separate private interface Zoom room, where it's not a group setting. You actually enter the network area, and then whoever's floating around in cyberspace in the network area will then automatically connect with you via one-on-one communication. And we're going to have current students from different programs be available in this network area to connect with you, so you can ask questions. So you can just connect with current students, because that's a great way to, again, kind of feel like not in the hot seat with a program faculty, kind of on more like, okay, this is like my peer here that I'm talking to. I get it, you guys. I get talking to program faculty can be intimidating. So I want to make sure we're providing you actual current students to talk to as well. So conferences that, I can't really stress that enough. Also, I don't know if a lot of people realize they can go to certain state association conferences. You just have to email and ask. You just have to sign up as a non-ANA member, a non-PAC member. You pay the dues and you get to go. And yes, it could seem really intimidating and scary, but I have actually run into some students at conferences, and it serves them so well. I mean, the faculty members who recognize that you are going to these conferences without even being a part of our association, it just really says a lot about you and your involvement and your commitment to this community without even actually being in it yet. And it's a great way to network. I can't say that enough. It's a great way to network and meet people. People are going to want to support you. And the more people you have in your corner to support you, the more empowered you're going to feel to embark on this journey. So that is why I am so passionate about connecting you to the community, because I know that's like rocket fuel to your success. And that's what I want for you. I want you to have rocket fuel for your success. I want you to feel supported, heard, and seen. I want you to feel like you have answers for your questions. I don't ever want you to feel like you're in the dark. So going to the conferences, obviously tune into CRNA School Prep Academy, and being part of CSPA is a great way to get that support that you need. So that way you just don't ever feel stuck, right? You always feel like you have a way to move forward. And then really kind of one of the last ways that is kind of untraditional, but I do think, if you put it under your enrichment activities on your resume, I think reading things about emotional intelligence is a great way to show them that you are cognizant, that this is a very important part of developing as a person. We all have room for improvement in our own emotional intelligence. And, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, we all have something to learn here. And I think if you enrich yourself by reading books such as Emotional Intelligence 2.0, it's by Travis Bradbury and Jean Greaves. I might have butchered that last name, but I will put it in, again, I will link to that book below so you guys can check it out. But it's a really great book. There's so many, I could give you tons of resources on emotional intelligence and just mindset, because I myself am really passionate about that. And I have had to utilize it quite a bit to help me, believe it or not. You actually think, oh, Jenny's so peppy, Jenny's so positive. But you guys, I get that I am that way because I actually try to be that way. I actually have to work on that. That's like a work in progress for me. I wouldn't say I've ever been like a negative person, but I definitely beat myself up in my own head quietly without anyone knowing. And so that's been something that I've had to struggle with. That's been something that I've had to fight. I would call it like one of my demons, you know what I mean? Where I suffer from insecurity, confidence, the imposter syndrome. Yeah, I suffer from that. And here I am like trying to guide you and lead you. And I'm like at the same time thinking, who am I, Jenny? What are you doing? So I've had to really work on quieting that voice. And a lot of that stems from not only emotional intelligence and recognizing where you currently are in that journey, but mindset. So I think enrichment activities is a sign of leadership, because all leaders will try to enrich themselves. And sometimes that's an investment, right? To enrich yourself. So don't be afraid, again, to listen to audiobooks, read books, go to conferences, network, and learn from others who can only help you and take away some, golden nuggets from their journey, from their experience, and how they've gotten where they are. I mean, if I look back to where I was and how I got where I am now, I've essentially stolen all my stuff. But in reality, like, I learn from other people. I take what I enjoy and I apply it to my life. So technically, but I enjoy that. It's really rewarding to develop relationships that are mutual, where I give back. But I also get so much from you. CSPA community, I get so much from you. I mean, you guys are like my fuel to my fire, my desire to keep going because of you, because you inspire me. All these stories I hear from you, your success stories, your struggles, your wins, all of it. I'm here for it and I love it. It really, when I'm having like a bad day or have a day where I beat myself up, I think about you and your success story. I think about you and your struggles. I think about, wow, all of our students within the CSPA all have their own struggles, and yet they're persisting. They're determined. They're going to persevere, and I'm going to too, right? So I don't know about you, but I enjoy that part of community. It's kind of like the accountability piece. You know how it is when, you want to stick to something, but if it's only on you, you're like, I'm just not going to do it. But if you have someone else who's rooting you on, who's saying, come on, you can push yourself, keep going, don't stop. You're like, okay, you're right, I can. So that's essentially what I feel like connecting at conferences and networking within the community can do for you. So if you're not a part of CSPA, I highly encourage you to do that. If you're not planning on coming to the conference, I highly encourage you to reconsider that. And again, it's August 6th and 7th. So I'm excited to see you guys there. And I hope you guys all have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much. I kept this episode short and sweet, but I really hope this helps you as far as gaining that leadership experience for your CRNA application. And I will see you next week. All right, bye-bye. Hey, future CRNA, as always, I appreciate you and your loyalty. Thank you so very much for tuning in this week. I'd love to hear from you, so screenshot this episode and share it to your IG stories with your biggest takeaway. Don't forget to tag me at CRNA School Prep Academy so I can personally thank you. Be sure to head over to CRNASchoolPrepAcademy.com to check out our blog and gather free resources to help you along your CRNA journey. Stay strong, and I'll see you next week.